U.S. states push deeper into reopening. Texas has reported 3 consecutive days of record-breaking COVID-19 hospitalizations. 9 California... Oh, we got our visitor back. Shadow, go lay down. 9 California counties are reporting a spike as new coronavirus cases or hospitalizations of confirmed cases, AP reported Wednesday. On Wednesday, investors assessed the Federal Reserve's updates on the economy and monetary policy. The policymakers voted unanimously to keep the interest rates unchanged and no rate increase. The Fed understands that we are just in the beginning phases of economic recovery, and making rash changes to policy or forward guidance is premature at this time. Alliance investment also said it will at least maintain of bond purchases before expanding by 5% in 2021. Investors are awaiting the new jobless claims for the data. The week ending June 6, which is not set to come out at which is set to come out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. Economists polled by Dow Jones expect filings for unemployment insurance 1.595 million last week, which is down from 1.775 million the week before. So, CNBC is actually trying to give us some good news and saying, yeah, this actually might work to our favor. So, I mean, it's a good thing. Don't sell off all your stocks just yet. If you have the chance to own something, don't just dump it off at this point, because we've got some other stuff that could be playing to our favor. Let's see, what else do we have here? From CNN Business. The stock's mega rally hit a roadblock, a somber economic outlook from the U.S. Federal Reserve, and the 2 millionth coronavirus case in the United States has investors questioning whether they had boosted the stock market too far, too fast. So, it looks like the riots are starting to die down and coronavirus is coming back. Let's see what we have going on here. U.S. stocks tumbled at the opening bell in New York, while the Dow falling 900 points, or 3.4%. The S&P 500 plummeted 2.7%, and the NASDAQ Composite fell 2.2%. The NASDAQ had soared to all-time highs on each of the past 3 sessions and climbed above the 10,000 points for the first time ever. U.S. crude oil prices dropped more than 7% to $36.74 per barrel. The rising number of coronavirus cases in the United States had unnerved Wall Street. A second wave of infections could force many businesses to close again just after they reopened. Yep, that's what they're going to try and feed you, that it's going to close. You're going to have to close it right again. Don't start serving customers, because you're going to have to close again. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said Wednesday that the economic future was highly uncertain. Although he acknowledged that May's job report was a welcome surprise, he noted that millions of Americans will never go back to their jobs and could remain unemployed for years. Coronavirus could prematurely change many parts of the economy, and Fed economists predict unemployment will remain elevated for several years, although Powell said the Fed expect to keep their lead foot on the stimulus pedal for quite some time. Usually a major boost to corporate bottom lines and stocks, the dour forecast rattled investors. So, yep, we've got 2 that are sitting here trying to scare you out of the markets, and one that's actually trying to give you some hope. And the one that's trying to give you some hope is an NBC affiliate. Figure that one out. All right, I'm going to run this a little bit of a short show, so I'm not going to go through everything that I've got up on the stack for the day. So we're going to start here with this one from Fox News. Radical left Dems in Seattle says domestic terrorists take hold of the city. This is from Edmund DeMarsh. President Trump tweeted late Wednesday that domestic terrorists have taken over an area in Seattle amid George Floyd protests and blamed the city's radical left Democrats for contributing to the unrest. Radical left Governor Jay Inslee and the mayor of Seattle are being taunted and played at a level that our great country, the best country, has never seen before, Trump tweeted. Take back your city now. If you don't do it, I will. This is not a game. These ugly anarchists must be stopped. Immediately. Move fast. His tweet did not go unanswered. Mayor Jenny Durkin, a Democrat, took a swipe at Trump. Of course she did, because she's got that D next to her name, and you guys can't see my face anymore. So we gotta move that up just a little. And responded, "Make us all safe and go back to your bunker. Black Lives Matter." Man, that has been debunked so many times. It wasn't necessarily the fact that he went into the bunker because he was afraid. It was because the Secret Service was afraid, and they're jittery as fuck. So, for them to go down and say, "Mr. President, you're going to the bunker now and you don't have a choice," I mean, that steps up above anything else that the president does. But they're going to keep trying to teach you the fact that, yes, it was the most afraid president in the world. Attorney General William Barr told Fox News that on May 29th, the unrest was tense near the White House, and the Secret Service recommended the president go down to the bunker. We can't have that in our country. Governor Jay Inslee also fired back at Trump on Twitter, posting, "A man who is totally incapable of governing should stay out of Washington State's business." Stop tweeting. Hundreds of protesters stormed Seattle City Hall Tuesday night to demand Durkin's resignation, just days after seizing a 6-block downtown zone that includes a shuttered police precinct. Demonstrators remain peaceful without reports of violence or injuries, but are pushing Durkin to step down if she refuses to defund the city's police department. And, I heard about this for the first time yesterday. Apparently this that we got here in the news, but yeah, it was brought to my attention yesterday that they were doing this, and we were theorizing a little bit about what could have happened and how long this could last, because my theory behind the whole thing, from what little bit I know of it so far, is the fact that, well, first off, we've got a large left-wing militia group that's taken over a 6-block region of Seattle, and they're releasing demands. They released demands yesterday. They're sitting down there in 6 blocks in a very metropolitan area, which means that they're sitting there with 6 blocks worth of restaurants. It's kind of an upscale place. So they do have supplies. The U.S. can cut power to the area, which I would highly recommend, but for the most part, if they're going to make demands, I would just leave them alone. It's like, they're like children having a tantrum at this point. So leave them alone, let them burn itself out, and let them run out of their supplies, and then see how willing they are to negotiate or come in peacefully, because I'm willing to bet that they're either going to start killing each other and go down for murder, or start willingly come in peacefully, and I'm going to say it's probably going to be the second. I mean, yeah, they can probably sit around in there for a few weeks, so this is going to be something that goes for a while, but yeah, just let them sit it out, ignore them, lock them in the room, and let them go and hang out, and see how willing they are to negotiate once their food starts going out, or once they realize that they can't cook without electricity. Because that would be the other thing. If they have no electricity, then they can't cook. So let them see how long they last that way. All right, let's keep moving on here. I've got one from the Daily Wire on the same vein here. Washington Democrat Governor Jay Inslee has not heard anything about the extremists declaring Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle. This is from Ryan Saavedra. Washington Democrat Governor Jay Inslee claimed on Wednesday that he has not heard anything about extremists declaring an autonomous zone in his state's capital, despite widely shared images and photos that circulated on social media and a decent amount of media coverage. Inslee was asked during a press conference, "Governor, I'd like to ask you about what's going on in Seattle. There's this thing called the Capital Autonomous Zone. What's your thought on the fact that protesters have taken over and are not allowing people to come and go freely?" "Well, that's news to me," Inslee claimed. "So I'll have to reserve any comment about it. I have not heard anything about that from credible sources. Not that you're not credible, it's just like before I espouse an opinion, I should know of which I speak." That's never stopped you before, Governor Inslee. What is going on in Seattle is real, despite Inslee's claims that he's not heard anything about it. President Trump weighed in on the matter late on Wednesday evening, writing on Twitter, "Domestic terrorists have taken over Seattle, run by radical left Democrats. Of course, law and order." So with that, of course, and he's going to go law and order, and this I think is going to be what fucks us up, and this may actually be what ends the Trump presidency. It's not going to be the coronavirus. It's not going to be the George Floyd protest. It's going to be this specific protest, because he's going to run out and he's going to be the law and order candidate, and he's going to, and I understand he's trying to protect the property of the hardworking businesses and people that live in the 6-block square. I'm not so cruel that I think that the people who lost their businesses shouldn't be defended. I do. And this goes along with what a lot of people were saying with the fact that there is insurance for things like this, and we could even set up a federal, because we love spending federal money, we could even set up a federal relief fund for the businesses that lost everything on this. But for the most part, the only way to get these people to come in peacefully without having the president go in after kids, because I'm willing to bet a bunch of these people are just my age or completely younger, so without having the federal government going in and going after kids, the best thing to do would just be to shut off the power, shut off the gas, and let them run out of supplies. Let them have their temper tantrum and let their temper tantrum fizzle out, and then once again, see if they want to negotiate, see if they want to come out. That's going to be the best thing to do. You can shut off power to that big of a region pretty easily, I would think, with the amount of technology that we have. I mean, the power company can shut off power to an individual house, so why don't they just shut off power to everything? I'm willing to bet that a lot of these people without microwaves are not going to last for very long, but that's what I would do. And of course, Law and Order Trump is going to run in there, and he's going to go in with guns blazing and law and order, and this is what it's going to be. You have to follow my rules. I have the authority. I'm the ultimate law enforcement officer. So, yeah, that's what that's going to be. All right, let's move on. Speaking of the Donald, what else do I have over here? I don't know. Where's my cursor? There it is. Yeah, that's the hardest part about doing this out in the sun is I can't always see the cursor on my laptop screen. I got one here from ABC News. Christopher Columbus statue debate rises as controversial statues fall across the country. This is from Ivan Pereira. As cities and organizations across the country continue to take down monuments, memorials, and other symbols of hate, one controversial historical figure has come back into the spotlight, Christopher Columbus. While the debate over the controversial European explorer reignited, some of his opponents have already taken bold action to his memorials. On Tuesday night, a Columbus statue in Richmond, Virginia was torn down by protesters set on fire and then submerged in a lake, police said. Overnight Tuesday, another Columbus statue in Boston was decapitated, according to Boston police. In New York City, Columbus's opponents are re-upping their calls to remove the 14-foot marble statue that stands above a pedestal in Columbus Circle outside Central Park. Melissa Ayakawi Ine Oaks? Wow. I can't read that name. It looks like it might be Hawaiian, but I can't figure out. The executive director of the nonprofit American Indian Community House said now is the right time to remove the 128-year-old statue because the city did not need a monument to a figure who had a history of destroying and enslaving indigenous people. I think that with everything that is going on now, I don't see why the city would have an argument against keeping Christopher Columbus statue, she told ABC News. Proponents for the statue acknowledged that Columbus's history was far from the heroic, noble explorer portrayed in some history books. However, they said the history behind the New York statue is more nuanced. Richard Alba, a distinguished professor of sociology at the Graduate Center of CUNY, who was part of the special commission that reviewed controversial monuments in New York City, noted that the New York statue was erected mostly to honor the Italian Americans persecuted during the 19th century. The history of that statue is different from the Confederate statues of the South, which were put up to symbolize the triumph of whites over blacks in the South, Alba told ABC News. That's not what any of this is, people. You boil everything down to one specific topic, and it's race. And I was told when I was a kid that race was going to be over by the time I was By the time I was in my 20s, we weren't going to even see race anymore. It was all going to be over. All the racial divides were going to be solved. And yet, from 2008 on, the race war has just increased and increased and increased more and more as we go along. And I don't even understand it at this point anymore. It is. And that's what Columbus comes down to as well. This comes down absolutely to nothing but an argument of racism and native societies against coming in spite of the fact that Columbus didn't even discover the Americas. Amerigo Vespucci came before Christopher Columbus. It was just Christopher Columbus was the famous one. All right, let's keep going here. Where's my cursor? There it is. All right, I got one local here that I want to check on. This is from Fox News. Wisconsin gym under fire after offering I Can't Breathe workout report. This is from Kenneth Garger. Wisconsin gym apologized for offering a New York workout titled I Can't Breathe, some of George Floyd's final words, with a display showing a man down on one knee. Remember that gym? Not the Wauwatosa one, but the one closer to me locally. Spread quickly across social media platforms, drawing sharp criticism from users over its similarities to the manner in which Floyd died. The description of the over 35-minute workout, including the phrase, "and don't you dare lay down," it wasn't clear what the saying referred to. Really concerned that Anytime Fitness finds mocking the death of George Floyd appropriate racism is alive in Wauwatosa, hashtag Milwaukee, one Twitter user wrote on Reddit. There were images leading to a first surface reported, talk about tone deaf. Fire the person who thought this was clever or funny. Making light of a man's brutal murder is sad. Sick people, another Reddit user wrote. Floyd died on May 29th after a white Minneapolis cop, Derek Chauvin, knelt on his neck for nearly 9 minutes in a recording of the fatal encounter. Floyd could be heard saying, "I cannot breathe, I cannot breathe, I can't breathe." His death sparked worldwide protests over police brutality and racial injustice. The gym on Wednesday issued an apology saying they're terribly sorry for our actions this week by offering an I Can't Breathe workout. Yeah, that was probably not the right thing to do with everything else that's going on right here. I mean, yes, of course, most of your big popular sites are going to start to try and offer specials based on what's going on and what everybody's talking about, but that was probably in poor taste. So that was the right kind of protest to get the right kind of thing, and yeah, that is totally a Wauwatosa thing to do. That's a kind of upscale Milwaukee suburb, so yeah, I could see that a little bit. All right, I got a couple articles on this, but I want to choose this one because of the outrage that went along with it. So, from NBC News, Trump picks Tulsa on Juneteenth for return to campaign rallies. Tulsa has its own troubling history on race. The once thriving African-American businesses, our community, was decimated in 1921 when a racist white mob killed hundreds of black residents. I can't read there it is, from the Associated Press. So this isn't even from NBC. President Trump is planning to hold the first rally of the coronavirus era on June 19th in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he says he's planning more events in Florida, Texas, Arizona as well. Trump made the announcement as he met with a handful of African-American supporters Wednesday afternoon for a roundtable discussion. Trump's signature rallies often draw tens of thousands of people, but have been on hiatus since March 2nd because of the coronavirus pandemic, which has now killed more than 110,000 people in the U.S. "A beautiful new venue, brand new. We're looking forward to it," Trump said during a White House event. "They've done a great job with COVID, as you know, the state of Oklahoma." The rally will take place on Juneteenth, the commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States. Tulsa had its own troubling history on race. Its once thriving African-American business community was decimated in 1921 when a racist white mob killed hundreds of black residents. Black residents attempted to rebuild in the decades that followed, only to see their work erased during the urban renewal of the 1960s. Oklahoma is reliably Republican. Trump carried Oklahoma by more than 36 percentage points in 2016, more than doubling the vote of his Democratic rival, Hillary Clinton. Oklahoma was among the earliest states to begin loosening coronavirus restrictions, with salons, spas, and barbershops reopening in late April. Governor Kevin Stitt's most recent reopening phase places no limits on group gathering sizes as of June 1st and leaves the decision about how closely to adhere to social distancing guidelines up to the business owners and local officials. Stitt said the state was honored that the president said he was visiting. So, yeah, these numerologists over on the left, first off, I do believe that Trump did this on purpose. I can absolutely buy that, because he picks certain things that he knows will drive people nuts. He picks these things he says things throughout it, and picking something for Juneteenth during a Black History Month, picking Juneteenth during something that is affecting the black community, I'm sure he did that to honor the black community at this point, but of course they're going to try and do everything they can to paint the guy as racist. And they fall right into his trap every time. Every single time they fall directly into his trap. They see the cheese, they go running for it, they snap it, and it snaps down on them. So, yeah, this is great. And I'm glad to see that he's getting out there and getting started again. I really am. Because that means, well, once again, we're looking at they're trying to pump the coronavirus down to us, but of course, what do we see from health officials? That there's an exception if you're out protesting, that you don't have to adhere to social distance guidelines because it can't affect you as long as you're out protesting against racial injustice or whatever it is that they tried to feed us. So, good on Trump for getting back out there, getting on the horse, and trying to seal up his bid. I mean, with the exception of the last couple of days, we're looking at the Dow recovering, so that's something to look forward to. And he's got the cases to go in. Like I said earlier on the show, I think the biggest problem for him right now could be how he handles what's going on the Capitol Hill situation in Seattle. And if he goes too hard on it, he might screw himself for re-election. But if he handles it right, he's got the keys to the White House at this point. So this will be something to watch as we go along here. I think that's what we're going to do for news for the day. Because, yeah, like I said, I don't know how well this is working. I might be completely wasting my time at this point. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I know we're transmitting to YouTube because I looked at it earlier. I can't see the live chat here while I'm sitting here reading the news, and I can't see my cursor well enough to go and check on the live chat. So, like I said, you guys might not even be able to hear me right now, but we will move on to a thing that I like and a thing that I hate, and then we will get... I will read here from architectsjournal.com. Patrick Schumacher's Utopia Design Contest won't be about architecture. This is from Paul Finch. The tough stuff about who owns or controls the land, the consequences of that control seem as mysterious as the actual ownership of the disputed site where Liberland would be created, says Paul Finch. The Liberland Design Competition 2020, as reported by the AJ, invites architects, urbanists, interior designers, and students to drop radically creative yet mature proposals which seems like a contradiction in terms. Is to be taken seriously, whether one disagrees with his worldview or not. He adds to the discussion, and by taking polemical positions, forces you to think about why he's wrong if you believe that he is. Architecture Festival made front-page headlines because he suggested, among other things, that Hyde Park could be used for housing, and that council tenants should not have pride of place in cities, that privilege being reserved for key workers, which, not surprisingly, seem to include young architects at the ZHA. The thing about Patrick is that he can take criticism and is funny. He laughed at a suggestion that his ideal world oxygen would be sold as a free market commodity, though I wondered at the time whether this would set off a line of thought about relating taxation of polluters to a notional price that we... I mean, there's some problems going on with this and the design aspect of it as well, and if they're going to have the city, then people are going to ask who builds the roads. But the idea at this point, and this is a few years old, and I had never... 2016, where some less than desirable areas of Eastern Europe on the Croatian border, you do what you want. You build the roads that you want. You either volunteer the roads or... there's not going to be any taxation. So they're going to have the grand experiment of the libertarian idea. And we'll see how well it actually works. We'll see if they thrive, or we will see if they fall and falter. And I love that. I love the idea that somebody's actually taking the initiative to get sovereign national land and get ready to start making a country out of it. And of course, like I said, they gave him the worst land they possibly could, but the fact that he's got the land, it's the same thing with where I started live streaming. My live stream sucked at the beginning. And even my videos were terrible at the beginning, but if I'd have waited and practiced until I felt that I got good enough to do stuff, I would have never got started. I would have never had an audience, and we wouldn't be sitting here with Freedom Scoop right now. So, yeah, this was definitely something. You've always got to take the first step. No matter how bad the first step is, you've got to take the first step. You'll never know if you can succeed unless you try. And there's my canine friend again, coming here to come and say hi. Kid, go lay down. Good dog. All right. And now we're going to do a thing that I hate. So, I sat for 12 hours in my truck with Stephen Ignoramus, where he had just discovered the fact that in a place in North Carolina, there was a Instagram Live, well, it wasn't an Instagram Live event, but it was an event that they staged, and people were Instagramming left and right about the fact that the white, guilt-ridden liberals, after the George Floyd protests, were going out and washing the blacks' feet. So this goes along the line of kneeling to the blacks because they feel bad about their white guilt and their white privilege and everything else that goes along with being white. They're terrible for being white, so they now have to sit down and kneel to the blacks, and it went too far on this scary thing. Now, of course, Steven's having fun with it. You can see him on the live streams. You go check him out over on Instagram and Periscope. Check out his live streams because he talks a lot about it. But it's a disgusting idea, the fact that anybody would feel the need to kneel to another man that you hadn't done anything directly to. You cannot be held responsible for the race that you have. Good dog. They weren't doing it at gunpoint, but the fact that they even felt the need to do any of this at all, this makes me lose any faith in humanity that I had. And, you hear my segments every Monday morning about what restores my faith in humanity, and I always feel good after I'm done doing that segment, but by the end of it, I hear stuff like this, and now my faith in humanity is lost. So, congratulations, North Carolina, for making me lose my faith in humanity. And with that, we're going to head on out of here. So, I want to thank everybody for coming by and checking this out. We'll see if this even worked. We'll be checking into this later. So, if not, if this didn't work, if I look at the buffered video and it just was terrible, I will have Jessica Green come in and round out your Friday. So, we will look forward to that. Who came and checked us out, even if I don't know who you are yet at this point. And one of us will see you tomorrow.